So suddenly you just become no one. I'm no longer head of innovation or group principal or whatever. I'm just Bily who's come to pitch jobs. I went to the mining endowment beginning of this year, and I think I had a moment when I saw Anglo-American's name and I was like overwhelmed with emotion. I actually did go to a therapist and I was like, help me, because I don't know what I am if I don't have this tag, if I don't have this name attached to me.
Can you please just explain how your name is Bily, but you're actually a lady?
So actually, when my mom was pregnant, my dad had just assumed it was going to be a boy. And he was saying, oh, you know what? I heard about Billy Carter, who's Jimmy Carter's brother or someone like that in America. My son is going to be named Billy. Yeah. And lo and behold, here I am. But I must say, I'm glad he didn't change it, because it is always like an icebreaker.
It is. It's such a contrast.
I know. And the first day I pitched up at a mine to work, I remember the look on the training officer's face. He kind of looked at me and he was like, yeah? And I said, oh, I'm Billy. He's like, oh.
You're the
and then he
Billy.
calls the change house. He's like, I think you got to change it to a girl's change house. I was like, seriously, guys, you had no idea I was a girl?
And that's such a great segue, taking us back to your origin story when you and I first met. You were working for Anglo at that time.
Correct.
What's your journey into the mining industry as a woman?
Yeah.
In STEM.
True, in STEM, that's right. I think I was kind of lucky and pushed in a way, because I studied with a bursary from Anglo, or De Beers specifically at that point. I grew up in a small town called Kuruman in the Northern Cape. So there were a lot of diamond mines around that area, and they were really pushing to get female engineers into the sector. So I guess that was really my entry. I had no idea at that point what I was getting myself into. I just knew someone was going to pay for my education, and I was thrilled, right? But I always did want to do engineering. So I was like, yeah, electrical sounds about right. And that's kind of how I ended up. But even then, my plan was, okay, so they've paid for 4 years. I'm going to go to the mines, work my bursary off for 4 years, come back to Joburg, and then work with my friends and wear fancy suits and dresses to work and heels to work. I was like, that's my plan. I had my plan. It was my exit strategy. And then, 24 years later,
Still in PPE.
Still at PPE. So, I would say that's really my story.
What's been your highlight from that season? I mean, 24 years is long,
Yeah, it's a long time. I think when I got onto an operation, it was quite a shock for me. But what I realized was I enjoyed being in this buzz. Like, I really enjoyed being in the middle of stuff happening, production, going underground, seeing tons come out. And there was a rough side to it, but then there was a tech side to it. Then there was a people side. So I kind of, without even realizing, started enjoying it. And I felt like I needed that. I needed to see stuff happening and not just sit behind a desk. And also, I guess I was also quite lucky because De Beers was very pro-tech. They had their own research and development wing. So we were exposed to being innovative from a very young stage in our careers. And I think that was really what I caught on to.
And then 24 years, what changed for you in that 24-year period? Because we spoke about you've survived multiple retrenchment cycles within Anglo. And eventually you made a choice to take voluntary retrenchment.
Correct.
What was that journey like?
Wow, yeah. I think my first retrenchment letter I got was like 6 months into when I literally started working.
Yikes.
Yikes indeed. De Beers is going through a restructuring. I had no idea what this meant. But I survived that. And post that, I was actually fine for a long period. I had good roles. I was in projects. I was in tech. I was in operations. So I had a really good time. And then 2021 was when I subsequently got the next retrenchment. And I think that was probably a year after we had met. And that really shocked me, because I thought, I've been in this industry long enough, right? I'm at a senior position. There's no way. I'm invincible. No one's going to get rid of me. But then I kind of realized, actually, I'm no longer core business. I am a layer that was under threat because it was a management layer And as much as we want to feel important, at the end of the day, we are not bringing the tons out, right? So that really did, I would say, it shook me quite a bit. Because up to that point, I was very invincible in my mind. But what it also created was this ability for me to just be enterprising. So I was like, okay, let's see what else is out there. Let me call whoever I could. And I literally called every person I could think of in other companies within our company. And I met this fantastic man called Ludovic Lecam, who is the executive head for the bulks division, which was the group division. And he was like, oh, you want a job? I'll give you a job. And I was like, what? Is that even possible in today's age where someone who's just spoken to me, interacted with me a couple of times, gave me a job? And I was again on a high. And then 2 years later, I get another retrenchment letter. So I realized the higher up you go, the more possibilities you had to get cut because the business is changing. Those are the layers that are easy to remove. I was no longer invincible. And I think, so that was the second one. I had to reapply for my job. I had to compete with my friend, one of my close friends. She didn't get it. I got it. That was quite tough. I was still a single mom at that point. I had separated and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. And then I got the job again. And then a year after that, in 2024, I get another letter.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm a strong believer that God tries to give you signs. And then maybe when you don't listen to it, the signs become louder and louder. So by the third time, I was like, no, I think there's probably something else I should be. And I guess I was also lucky enough to be at a stage where I was quite confident because I had worked for 24 years. I had worked in different roles. I had worked from a foreman up to an executive role. So I think I was a bit more comfortable in myself and a lot more confident in my own knowledge. And I felt like even if I didn't have an Anglo tag attached to my name, I could probably survive. So that's really what I leaned quite strongly on. And I thought, okay, maybe this is, before I got retrenched, maybe I should do the VSP option because that gave me a bit more financial security. I had a bit of money, a bit of runway, as they call it, to keep me going. And yeah, that's really, I think, which pushed me to.
So I'm only hearing, would you advise people against moving further away from operations? Because you mentioned that the further away you are from core, the more easily dispensable, let me use that term, you are.
I guess it depends, right? I do feel that, yes, you might be a little bit safer, if I can call it that. However, for your career growth, you do need to move out of an operations role. If you want to be in a strategic role, if you want to be in an executive role, you do need that exposure and you do need to move out of an operation. So I kind of feel like nothing's really guaranteed. And that's probably what retrenchment and the cycles have taught me. However, take a chance. You know, don't hold yourself back in this fear that if I go further up, I'm disposable. It's not that. You know, just take a chance, back yourself up, that it's about the skill sets that you're picking up, which is transferable. So it's not just about the role, it's about the skills that you are picking up.
And when you speak of transferable skills, how did you get to understand what your actual transferable skills were beyond your academic qualifications?
Yeah, that did take a bit of time. And I think being pushed to a retrenchment cycle, really, I think that is what pushed me to think about it. I had to sit down and say, okay, if I didn't have a company or a role name attached to me, what did I have to offer? And I realized that my ability to listen to a chaotic problem, translate that into a problem statement, and find a solution was my skill. It was definitely something I was exceptionally good at, no matter which role I was in. And I feel like that's the transferable part, right? The electrical engineering, yes, gives me the technical abilities to translate a problem. The operational experience gave me the know-how to translate a problem. And the managerial experience and the sort of strategic thinking also gave me the ability to solve a problem at the end of the day. The levels at which I solved the problem is probably different. Now, when I was at operation, it was, hey, fix this pump. When I'm in a global setting, it's what's the strategy to reduce operational costs for our group, you know? So the scale of it might change, However, that skill set is something that I carried throughout my career. And I think that's something I've honed quite well.
Did it not feel lightweight though?
Yeah.
It's a very core skill, and it's the magic
Correct.
that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
But it almost feels, how did it not? Yeah. It's not lightweight.
Like, oh, that's nice. Everybody can solve a problem. Yeah, yes, you're right. It does feel light. However, when you back it up with what you have done in your career, it's not light anymore. When I say, hey, guess what? I've reduced operational risk by 15% using these skills, then I'm a lot more marketable, right? So I agree with you. It feels very light when I come and say, I can solve your problems. But when I show proof of how I've done that throughout my career, that's the difference, right? So you have to back it up by proof, by, with the strategy I developed, we implemented 10 projects. We had a 70% reduction in safety incidents. We had a 15% uptime and productivity. Now me solving problems sounds like a big deal, right? Because it's like, okay, so she's managed to do that. Maybe that's one way of looking at it.
No, that makes sense.
That's a great question, actually. You're right. Yeah. How would you sell your skill to the world, right?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then with all this transition, how did you navigate the identity shift, specifically from being this high-performing corporate employee, and now you suddenly finding yourself outside of the big company safety?
Wow. I tell everyone I'm still recovering corporate employee. I need my support structure. I went to the mining endowment beginning of this year, and I think I had a moment when I saw Anglo-American's name, and I was like overwhelmed with emotion. And a friend of mine had to hold me down, and she's like, I know it's so French. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, 24 years is a huge part of your identity, right? I think what I try and remind myself is it's about who I am at the core, regardless of the roles and the identities. And I had to go through that. When I decided to step away, I actually did go to a therapist, and I was like, help me, because I don't know what I am if I don't have this tag, if I don't have this name attached to me. And that's really where we went back to who is Bily? And what has Bily been offering the world for the past 25 years in her career? And then once I started putting that down, then it became very clear for me that, yes, as much as I was in Anglo-American and that was my identity, there was still a part of me that was being offered, right? And that shouldn't change, regardless of what safety net you have, what, environment you're in. Because that is really what we take with us, no matter what company name or cap I wear. So I think that was what I held on to quite tightly. It's that, let me understand who is Bily.
But I'm almost hearing you say that you still had to grieve.
I did.
The corporate identity loss.
Absolutely. And you know what else was tough for me in the transition? When you're in a corporate environment, just like you said, there's a security and safety of that world. People know you have a good rapport with them. And there's some perks that comes with being in a nice position, and you can call people and be like, hey, do this for me, do that for me. And just with your role, there's an assumed level of respect that comes with it, seniority, oh, she's this, she's that. People need to not listen to you, whether they like you or not. In the outside world, not so much, hey? So that was quite a big shift, because now I had to literally start from zero, because nobody knows me, right? Outside of that world. Yes, in the mining world, people still know me, but when I go to a small to medium business, they are kind of like, oh, that's nice, you're cute, how old are you? And yeah, but you've been working for how long? Oh, okay, that doesn't matter. Listen, I've got stuff to do. What do you have to say? So suddenly you just become no one. And that was quite tough, because you're just no one now. I'm no longer head of innovation or group principal or whatever. I'm just Bily who's come to pitch a job. So I think that was, more tough.
And this, you speaking now of your transition, so you left Anglo. And then now you've started your own company.
Yeah.
So you've reinvented yourself. What's been the biggest adjustment moving from corporate into self-employment and just building your own AI consultancy business?
Yeah, that monthly paycheck. On the 25, you're like, oh, yes, thank God, no, got nothing to worry about for the next few days. Yeah, that has been the biggest shift. That consistency of knowing that I just have to push it to the 25th of the next month, to now suddenly you get a big chunk of work. They'll pay you some this month, they'll pay you some next month. So you have to almost look at your turnover as a big chunk rather than a every month chunk. And you kind of say, okay, so if I get this, if I make this much money, then it's going to keep me going for 6 months. So I think that definitely been a big adjustment. And thankfully, I have a great husband who understands that. So he's kind of said, hey, let's work and see how you can get some money every month to just give you a bit of that security. So that has been the biggest shift.
Sure.
How
That's a
you
real one.
manage your way of living, I think has changed considerably. But it's also been good in a way because it's no longer just set to that amount, right? Now the possibilities are quite wide, because it all depends on who you're signing on. While before you knew this was a set amount every month you were going to get, but now that amount is actually the possibility of it being a lot more has gone up. So that's probably, I would say, the biggest shift.
And that is such a real one. And then obviously moving into AI from your previous role.
Yeah.
Was that a difficult skill transition, and how did you approach learning and repositioning yourself specifically?
So I think, again, I was quite lucky because in the last sort of 4 or 5 years of my career in Anglo, I was in a pure tech role. So it might not have been AI in the form that we have right now, but we definitely looked at data analysis, big data, looking at new tech and how we could digitally transform. So I was part of the digital transformation team. I was the one who wrote the strategy, the roadmap. So I think I was quite in it, in the thick of things. And okay, maybe it was a bit more of a different context because now we are looking in mining. However, what we were doing towards the end of it was, can we adopt tech that somebody else is doing in mining? So I was quite fortunate that I was really exposed to what was happening in tech. So for me, that transition didn't feel like a difficult one. I think the transition in terms of whether AI was good or bad is probably what I struggled with the most, because there was still I didn't realize it, but there's still a bit of a resistance even within me to be like, can it really be this simple? And can it really add that much value? So then I went and actually did a certificate with MIT on AI and business strategy. And I think that really helped set me up because they looked at it from a very strategic, from a very, when you implement, how you implement, and you no longer looked at AI as this silver bullet, but you looked at it as a tool. And that was really like drilled into us with every module that we were doing. And even the projects we were doing was about how do you leverage it? And I think that shifted my perspective on AI. So that's really how I tackled it.
Everyone's talking about AI right now, myself included. Why should ordinary professionals actually care about it? What's real? What's hype?
Yeah, so the AI, I call them the evangelists, right? They're the ones who are like, oh my gosh, listen, it's going to change everything. So I have, again, a different view on it. You know, when the computer was invented and internet was invented, there was a lot of disruption that came into our lives. However, it was absolutely a tool that we could leverage to, I would say, supercharge our ability to do stuff. I really do believe that professionals and people in general should definitely look at adopting it. And again, comes back to it is a tool, right? When Excel was, I think I was reading up on that, when Excel was created, everyone said accountants are going obsolete. It's not accountants that have gone obsolete. It's just the way of work, right? That manual, intensive, writing in ledgers from this side to another side. That's what has changed. The activity has not completely been obsolete. However, the way they do the activity has become obsolete. So that's kind of why I feel it is important to use AI, because it really can enhance your ability to do work. The hype part, as much as the big tech companies are reducing a lot of the overheads, I'm not convinced that it is going to completely, like, I don't believe in 10 years that it's going to be AI agents who are running the world. Remember, artificial intelligence in its format, it's still sitting as a layer above what we are doing, right? So it is still feeding off of what we are doing. If it continuously feeds off each other, one artificial intelligence to another, there's a point where it's going to get to a plateau. And it's only when we intervene that it starts stepping up, right? So without us, there is no artificial intelligence. And that's really why I don't buy into the hype that everything is going obsolete and everyone becomes obsolete. I'm not buying into that just as yet. Yes, there's definitely going to be a change in the way we work. That I completely believe in.
One of my fears, and this is what I've been reading up about, even with my own AI use, is this going to cause me to lose my thinking muscle? And how do we use this tool wisely without outsourcing our own judgments and creativity and, our depths?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely even my fear. I'll be honest with you. Look, there's definitely been a decline in, you can see, especially with kids. I think there's a report that came out recently, which shows that our ability to think is dropping with AI. However, I do feel like what we are missing is, there are three things. I was listening to the professor was talking about what does AI literacy actually mean, right? It's not about using the tool. So he says there are three things that are important. The first thing is your AI is only as good as the context you give it and how you frame the problem. So your ability to frame a problem, to give it context, is still just as important. So you still need to be thinking about that. Because if I tell an AI, hey, recently the work that I did was create a user manual for this tool, and I put a screenshot and I said, boom, it's not going to give me the best answer because I've not given it context. I've not told it how I want. I've not told it who the users are. So my ability to frame all of those things is actually even more important now, right? We can't give that away because it's going to give you crap if you do it. So that's the first thing. So that I feel will always be in our minds. The second thing he actually said was, we now more than ever need to rely on our own ability to judge, because this thing is going to give you tons of output. You still need to use your brain and your judgment, which is combined with your experience and everything, to say, oh, actually, from what you've given me, I like this part, but I don't like that part. So that is actually important for you to get the most out of AI. So that means that we're not, giving that away. If you tell it, you judge it for me, that's okay. It might do it. But at the end of the day, you are still accountable for using that information in whatever context, right? So if you don't use your own judgment, at the end of the day, the AI is not going to be accountable for it. You are the person who's accountable for it. So it's like, I think Deloitte sent out a report with AI and our AI policy. Guess what? AI doesn't care, right? It's just going to give you what you've asked it to.
You'll get an answer.
Yeah, it is going to get an answer. But you are the person who's accountable for what it gives you and whether you consume it or not. So I feel like those are never, if anything, that's going to be heightened going forward. So your ability to judge and judge quickly and be able to say, okay, this is crap and that's not, is actually going to be amplified in this new era. So your judgment, you should never really put that away unless you're prepared to deal with embarrassment and putting stuff out there. It hallucinates and then you get sued, not the AI.
In a business context, and I've been blogging as well and thinking about creativity. And we were talking earlier on about LinkedIn, how everyone is just sounding the same. And that was part of the reason why I just wanted to blog. I wanted to hear a voice that still also sounded human.
Yeah.
It's not sounding, I am thrilled to announce, it's just sounding normal. I even don't enjoy AI music.
Yeah.
You can hear the voice is synthetic.
Yeah.
The beats are great, but you're like, hey man, this is...
Nah.
So I find, even for myself, and I saw someone saying, if you didn't take the time to even write this, why should I take the time to read it?
Correct. Yeah. Actually, what you said is so important, because what happens is, remember, these models are working on the most possible outcome, right? So it's all based on statistics. So after a while, what happens is everything just kind of goes into a mean, right? Because that is what it's doing. It's only responding to a mean. It's not responding to an outlier here or an outlier there. It's constantly finding a mean. So that's why after a while, we all just, if you're using AI, everything just sounds the same. And that is why inherently humans are extremely important even for the AI, because if AI is talking to AI, it's always going to end up in one place. Yeah.
Aligned. And then outside of work and achievements, what currently brings you joy or fun in this season of your life?
Oh my gosh. You know what gives me joy? It's my flexibility of time. Like I suddenly, I can wake up and be like, "Oh, you know, today I just feel like going out there, or I can just shop and I don't have to call my boss and be like, oh my gosh, sorry, I don't feel great. So I definitely enjoy the flexibility of time. My parents are getting older, so I'm enjoying having, again, that ability to just connect with them, because before I was like, "Grr." And I think what I am also enjoying in this phase of my life is, I don't know how to say this. I think we women struggle a lot with self-worth. And I feel like I'm in the stage where I just feel worthy. I don't know how to explain that, but I feel like it's okay for me to spoil myself a bit here. It's okay for me to not follow what everyone else thinks I should be doing. It's okay for me to disappoint a few people. Like,
But is it also not because having stepped away from corporate, I'm thinking out loud, there's a performance of nature in corporate where you feel like you also have to perform to show your worth.
correct.
That's not over you anymore.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously in a business context, it's still there, because I'm always like, oh, when is my next contract coming? When is my next project happening? And I'm always pushing my developers, guys, we said we were going to present it on this day. We better present it. And I'm actually quite happy that I still have a bit of that, because otherwise, honestly, if you don't have the ability to drive yourself when you're doing your own business, you could literally like fall flat. So I like that part of it. However, I think what I agree with you. I find the entrepreneur world, actually, people are a lot more forgiving, surprising,
Sure, a lot more human.
a lot more human. The connections are very different. You call them, you'll say, hey, I didn't manage to get this done. That's okay, Billy. Call me next week. Or they also don't respond to me for months. And I don't hold that against them. While in a corporate environment, you'd be like, people are nicer in a way to each other, because they're kind of like, yeah, I get it. I've been in the business. I failed a few times. I understand how it is. Yeah, it's quite tough. So yeah, maybe that's what I am enjoying. Being a bit more kinder to myself, I think, is maybe what I am enjoying in this stage of my life.
That is so wholesome. And if you could sit down with your 39-year-old self over coffee, what would you say to her?
40 is the best season of your life. I would definitely tell her not to sweat too much, not to sweat the small things, to really, again, stand up for yourself and be okay with saying no to a lot of things. I think I was always scared to disappoint, right? And whether it's your corporate environment or whether it's at home or people or relationships, there was definitely a part of me that put a lot of pressure on being perfect for the world. And yeah, now I'm kind of like, it's okay. It's fine. So I would probably tell my 39-year-old self that 40 is fantastic. You have a certain sense of freedom that comes with being in your 40s, and back yourself. You know, a lot of the thoughts and moments where we've really questioned ourselves, it's okay. Like, just do it. Take a few more risks and be okay with the fact that maybe something doesn't work out exactly the way you had anticipated. So maybe that's probably what I would tell my 39-year-old self.
I love it for her. So looking back now, is there anything you would tell or advise your young self differently?
Yeah, definitely. I think the risk factor is definitely a big thing, because I was very risk averse in the early stages of my career, and I was always very scared to be like, oh, what if I asked this question and someone said no? Or I didn't really fight for getting promoted. I didn't really fight for getting paid more. When I looked at some of the pay disparities between my male colleagues and myself, I was quite shocked. Say, what? You asked for that? So I would say just be a bit more, what is the word? I don't want to say the swear words, but just ask a bit more. Again, maybe it comes back to that self-worth thing, right? Because we women were always judged on what we achieved to give us the next step, while men were always judged on their potential. So I feel like just fight for your potential rather than say, I've been in a production environment for 4 years, so now I am good. Versus, hey, listen, I know I have the potential to do that. Like, I never really fought for some of my own abilities when I was younger.
But did you think you could, though?
That's the thing. I don't think I could.
And I don't know why that is, because I fully
Yeah.
relate to you. I've never thought, you just get given your salary and you move on.
Oh, wow, thank you. What you've given me. Oh my gosh. Like, oh,
I need to buy.
yeah, like we should not be defined by what another person necessarily feels we're worth. Yes, we've got to be reasonable about it. However, still back yourself a bit more. When I see my husband, who's also an entrepreneur, like I see that in him where he just instinctively has a feeling of worth. Like he'll just go in and be like, yeah, but I'm damn good at what I do. And I'm like, no, you're not. You don't know anything about, what you're doing. He's like, so? And I think that almost comes from blissful ignorance at some point, right? Because I think also with us, we kind of feel like we need proof before we say something. We need proof before we say something. While some guys are just like, they just say what they feel.
I feel
it. Yeah, like I can feel it. And a lot of people surprisingly respond to that, right? They do respond to, oh, look at that kid over there. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what the world is set up to see, right? They see, oh, there's a confident person. Yeah, he probably knows what he's talking about, but it's actually
now my head is just going off. I'm thinking of the cultural nuance that you're
100%, cultural, and of course, as a girl, right? You've always been told never to be overconfident. Don't be the loudest in a room.
Yeah,
because you need to be the timid. I need to sit in the corner. Like, I remember going into meetings when I was young and I was an engineer. I had done my GCC, I'd done all of that. And we would sit in a meeting and someone would give me the minutes to write. And I'm like, so you know what I did? I would give the crappiest minutes. Eventually, they gave it to another guy to write. I was like, I mean, who told you that I was good at writing minutes, guys? Like, did you just assume? Right. So, and that's the thing, right? And I mean, I wouldn't blame them because they were used to that kind of system. But that was one way I got around it. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just show you how I'm not good at that. So yes, there's a lot of cultural gender stereotypes that don't help.
And let's be pragmatic now. When you say back yourself, practically, what does that mean?
I believe backing yourself is, I think I heard this somewhere. It's a belief that the version of you that needs to deal with whatever situation will appear at that point. So, for example, I don't know what all I need to deal with. However, I have backed myself enough to know that when the time comes, the version of me that needs to deal with that problem is going to appear. That's what backing. So it's like, that nothing's going to be perfect. However, when something happens, you will figure it out. And I think that's what backing yourself is.
So just trusting in your abilities, trusting that you can take this bold move, whatever it is, be it taking voluntary retrenchment or choosing to walk away.
Yeah.
That the you that needs to make the next choice will be enough for that situation.
At that point. That's a nice way to put it. Yes.
Okay.
So that is what for me, backing yourself means. And also, obviously, faith and God, and I call it the universe. I always, there is one thing that I do tell myself is that things are always working out for me. And I have that belief. So even if today it looks like, oh my goodness, but it's not rejection, it's redirection, right? So it is just the world kind of pushing me into directions I need to go into. So and then when you have that belief that things are always working out for me, then whatever challenges you're going through right now is just a step in that direction. So that is, I mean, it's not easy. Trust me. There are days when I'm like bawling my eyes, like, what was I thinking? I didn't find another job. However, somehow it is that, yes, let me back myself. I know I'll be able to handle it. And I know that things are always working out for me. And that's two things I probably hold on to quite tightly. And maybe that's probably the best way to describe it.
I love that. Thank you. In closing, how do I pronounce your surname?
Well, I always say it's Purushothaman.
I'll stick to Bily.
Thank you. And I'm more than happy to stick to me as well. So yes, Purushothaman.
That's it. I love it, Bily. Thank you so much.
No,
This
thank
was
you.
so fun. And folks, that was Bily after 24 years in mining, multiple retrenchment cycles, and eventually walking away from corporate life. She's now successfully reinventing herself as an entrepreneur, and she's figured out who Bily is without the corporate tag. So if this conversation stayed with you, share it with someone who might need it. And remember, back yourself. You'll find Bily on LinkedIn. Her details are in the description. I'm Hazel, and this is Grab a Coffee. See you next time.